So, hello, Gil and Gloria and Michelle. I'm Evelyn, one of the moderators for the People of Color Caucus, Move On's People of Color of Caucus. Gloria is here, and we're expecting Ann in a few minutes. But in the meantime, so that we can stay on track with our meeting tonight and not keep anyone overtime on a Friday evening, we're going to go in and get started. So, I'd like to welcome all of you guys here. And just a few guidelines, a few very brief guidelines. First of all, we're going to remain on and off mute, and Gil is going to be he's the presenter for tonight, and he will ask certain questions, so you will have be able to come off mute according to his presentation. But in the meantime, if you can let us know where you're dialing in from, that would be fantastic. And also, just for the sake of keeping everything on track and keeping us focused, we're going to ask that you not post any political links or personal links in the chat. That kind of has a tendency to be a little bit distracting. And this is a very important event that we're hosting tonight. And Gil has just worked really hard to get things together. So we want to give him due respect. And so just to reiterate, if you can keep the comments relevant to the focus of the training, that would be fantastic. And Gloria, if you would at this time, share just a brief bit of information about our organization as a People of Color Caucus with Move On.
Well, our organization provides a space for people who identify as people of color. Every person is invaluable, whether they're here with us tonight or, on the Move On app, wherever they are. Everyone's experience is so important, and we treasure that experience. If we can share that experience, we can collaborate so that we can work hard to get out the vote and get the people we wanted elected in 2024.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gloria. I really, really appreciate you. And at this time, I'm going to go on and introduce our friend. He's not just like a speaker for tonight. Gil Ramos is our friend. We've known him for a long time and just have such great respect for him as a person. And, I think we could actually use the word, we love Gil Ramos. He's just a down-to-earth, good person. And that's not part of his bio, but that's what I'm saying. Anyway, known him for quite a few years, and there's been a consistency in who he is as a person, and it just touches my heart in a very special way. So, but to introduce Gil, he has, for this presentation, he has been in practice for over 30 years. That's a long time, working with individuals to address a variety of issues such as depression, childhood maltreatment, grief, post-traumatic stress, anger, and self-defeating thoughts and behavior. But as a social justice organizer, Gil has worked in collaboration with organizations such as the Women's March, the People's Campaign, Common Cause, and of course, Move On. He is also a board-certified and approved clinical supervisor and has served as an educator to students and interns at the Texas A&M International University and the University of Texas at Austin. And his credentials are just phenomenal and impeccable. And if you guys received the information through our messaging app on Move On, Mobilize, you can read it for yourself, but there's just a lot here. And he's earned it all. So Gil, take it away. The floor is yours. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my great pleasure. Move On got me started. I was a beginner, scared, not knowing what to do, knowing I had something to do, and Move On took me by the hand. And thank you, Move On. I am so grateful to you all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start my screen share here. Oops. Oh. All right. And great. And I was asked to do a talk on something that I really love to do, which is providing help to activists who are out there doing the work on marches, on rallies, doing phone banking, knocking on doors, making sure that people are registered. It is some work. And one thing that I have heard, and one reason why I really love this particular topic is because for the last 3 years, activists like us have been getting a bit tired and a bit wondering, well, what can I do next? Things seem overwhelming. There's so much going on, and can we really make a difference? I'm a little burnt out. I'm tired. I'm scared. It's getting dangerous out there, all that stuff. And I want to say that that sort of stress is normal. Those perceptions are normal. They are okay to have. I do want to say in this presentation that even though they're normal, they can be gotten rid of, so that when we knock on the door, we're not worried about the response. All we're doing is knocking on the door. Or when we sit down and get ready to do a march, we don't have to worry about folks that are out there with AK-47s. We are just getting ready to do a march, and we are present, and we are there, and we are in the here and now. And I think that activists can learn how to be in the here and now and be super duper effective in ways that we can't even begin to think of. So I love this particular topic, and this is about self-care, and how activists can use what I call the benign reality. And what I'd like to present to you all is some hacks that we can do as activists to hack our nervous system in such a way that we can get into a place that is not a stressful place, and we can work from a place of relaxation and be more aware of the people around us and the help around us and the love around us, and not have to worry about stuff that isn't there. I hope that makes sense. So let me start off by asking, just for you to consider, is your life stressful right now? Is it stressful? And I can see some heads and I can see some smiles. Yeah. Well, all right. People experience stress. Normal. Okay. And I'm wondering, as activists, right? I'm wondering, what is the effect that stress has on us as activists? And since there's a small group here, maybe we can just talk. You can unmute yourselves. And what I can do is fill in your responses here. So as activists, how does stress affect us? Let me start it off. Perhaps as activists, stress affects us by causing us to be afraid, feeling overwhelmed. Any other things?
I think it doubts, it causes doubt in our ability to even do anything. Because we're always, it's all connected with what you're saying there. They're being afraid, being overwhelmed, then we doubt because we look at what's going on out there rather than knowing our own abilities and functioning in our own abilities. We go into doubt, and that's it's a deficit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you all experience that sort of doubt, what are the effects in your body? What goes on in your body? Do you get tingly? Do you get sweaty? Do you get there's also physical effects.
Yeah, I think Michelle put in the chat, you don't sleep well.
Don't sleep well. Right on. Thank you, Michelle. Don't sleep well. I can tell you that for me, when I'm in that place, it's hard for me to be hopeful. You know, and when when I've walked in a rally carrying my sign, and then I see in the corner like 15 people with AK-47 assault rifles and in their tactical gear, you know, I say to myself, I am in danger. You know, let me ask you, what do you think are the causes of those effects? And I can start it out. Let's just say, people can say, let's just say, Trump is hate speech.
Yeah.
Uh,
The MAGAs wanting to cause chaos and violence at number 45's direction.
Yeah. Okay. Violence, right. Uh-huh. And how about people yelling at us as we peacefully demonstrate? I don't know. I mean, there are so many reasons.
What about this one though? Yes, I try to take it from a different angle sometimes too. I think that the causes can also be us. We can also cause our own stress level by repetitiously repeating this Trump hate MAGA stuff. And we internalize that, and that's all we think about. I think if we change the narrative and change the messaging and pick up on something else rather than being like them. I don't like the message them. I like to have my own message, and it's going to be different than that. Even though all this stuff is happening around me, I simply cannot internalize that. It's got to be a different narrative.
All right. It's like we start repeating their message. It's like we validate them by saying, hey, look at what they said. Look at what they said. They're doing this. And instead, is that kind of where you're coming from?
That's where I'm coming from. Yeah. And but rather than us saying, look at what they're doing, look, why do we not often enough say something else? Why don't we just say something like, let's get together and let's study, let's create a plan of action that we can put in place, not to necessarily counter them, but to move forward with what we really want to do. You know, for example, I'll give you an example. I could today, for example, I went to register voters at a mosque. Trump never entered my mind. What entered my mind when I got there, I'm sitting beside this 18-year-old kid who was just registered for the first time. It's got to be, to me, it's got to be that kind of messaging. And he was excited to get registered. And there was these other men coming up with their phones. What can I do? Can I check my registration? Getting people ready to vote rather than talking about the fact that these folks are putting stumbling blocks in front of us. I want to be able to get that 18-year-old kid over that stumbling block.
Beautiful. That's beautiful, Evelyn. And yes. And we are on target. What you guys are talking about, you're setting the stage for the solution that this presentation is going to be talking about. Concerns for other safety. Michelle, yeah, you agree. I see that. Okay, cool. All right. So, causes and the effects. And the reason I put that down is just to notice what could be possible causes and what we see as effects, as a group, as a community, as advocates. So, I'm going to throw something out. See what you guys think. As long as you believe that these causes that you came up with are the reasons why you have those effects, then you continue to have those effects. As long as you believe that these things cause this, you're going to continue to have these effects. And now, you know, Evelyn, this is part of the solution. You're saying, let's not focus on the negative messages. You know, we need to focus on the positive. So I'm saying, as long as we talk about other things causing this, then we're more than likely will continue to not focus on how to get rid of it. And the negative effects of stress are going to continue. That's my little insight that I'll throw out for us to consider. And I want you all to know, I'm not the expert. All of us together are the experts. We are activists who are facing stress normally. So, my other thought. Now, the primary reason why we have these negative effects is because we may mistakenly believe that those things on the cause list are the cause. So, Gil, what are the causes? Yeah. What are you talking about? What's the alternative? So what's the real cause of the stress? If it's not Trump and his hate speech, if it's not those people with AK-47s, now, we're going to get to that soon. And and if you're willing to be surprised, just hang on. I'm going to present to you a little graphic here. Oops, yeah. Just notice, just take a look at that graphic and take your time with it. And I'm going to ask you a question. Are you 100% safe right now? You know, do you feel safe at this moment after looking at that? And for those of you who do feel a certain amount of not being safe right now, raise your hands. And for those of you who do feel safe right now, who feels 100% safe right now when you look at those images? All right, okay. And for those of you who didn't raise your hands, that's okay, that's cool. Because, you know, this it's important to realize that we do have stress and that sometimes we don't feel safe because certain things in our political environment shakes us up. It's okay to be shaken up, but we don't have to live in that shaken up space. That's kind of the hopeful message here, that you can feel stressed given where we are now as a nation. That's okay, we're human. The cool thing is that we don't have to be. Any questions, any comments? Yeah, Gloria.
I think that the media and the news want us to feel scared all the time, or angry. And so I choose love versus, I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to get fearful. I am going to purposefully choose the attitude of love. And I'm going to keep my chatterbox. I'm not going to let my chatterbox go crazy thinking about terrible things. I choose to keep the thoughts about hope, peace, mercy, compassion. That's what I choose to keep in my brain.
Thank you. All right. Now, for those of us who live in a place of stress when we think about the political environment, when we're getting ready to do a march, when we're getting to start our get out the vote campaign. For those of us who wonder, oh geez, what's this going to be? I'm nervous. Want you to know that when you raise your hands and say, yeah, sometimes I feel stressed. And a lot of activists that we work with, even if we don't feel it ourselves, there are so many people around us that are feeling stressed. And I just want to say, for those of us who have felt like, yeah, I'm raising my hand. I'm stressed when I look at those pictures, and I don't like the idea of being discouraged and being out. Well, just want to say to you guys, it may be that what may be happening is that little piece of our brain that's called the anterior cingulate has atrophy. This is as far as I'm going to go with the neural system, but it may be that's what's going on when we feel stressed by the environment. It may be that our anterior cingulate has atrophied. Now, let me show you this little thing. Here it is, and it sits up right next to the cortex. And here's our thinking function, and here's where we hear and see, here's where we perceive and feel and touch. So here are all of our five senses trying to make sense of the world. And what this little guy does, it is our threat receptor. You know, it's the body's radar system. And what it does is that if it's doing its work, and if it's what it's supposed to be doing is, there is a bird and it's tweeting. There is a person with a gun, and it's just a person with a gun. It's not dangerous. He's not pointing at it. There are some demonstrators over here, and they're demonstrating. They have nothing to do with me. They're able to, that little portion of the brain is able to make sense of the environment. Now here, and assess danger accurately. Now, here's what I believe has happened in our society. I think the environment is constantly interfering with this system right here. And we, in my opinion, and in other researchers' opinion, our society lives in a culture where we're just saturated by trauma. We're the first generation in years. We're just the first generation to be so saturated by trauma. And what do you think keeps us saturated? Gloria, you touched on it. I mean, really.
Well, the news, they want to keep us scared. Do we see great stuff that's happening? Good news? Not very, very little.
And that's what Evelyn, you were talking about. And can we just focus on what can be working here instead of repeating the message the negative message we're getting? Now, we are the first generation that lives in a society that is saturated by trauma. Trauma is felt when we witness it, when we hear about it, when somebody tells us they've been involved in something scary. That we as a country receive trauma through media, tweets, Facebook, breaking news. I know a lot of us have said, I'm done. I'm not going to do tweets. I'm not going to do, you choose your media. So I'm just going to say to us, when this is going on, when we get saturated with trauma and we take it on and we say, oh yeah, people are dying. Oh yeah, things are scary. Oh yeah, I agree with the news. I agree with these stories. I agree with the fears that everyone, our little interior cingulate, it gets overrun by the body sensations that are created when we are swimming in trauma. For example, listening to news about Gaza or the GOP and the fistfights that are brought. You can imagine the physical reactions that a person can have. So, and when our nervous system gets saturated by media trauma, what happens is that our bodies get shot full of chemicals. We have the flight response starting. We start to sweat. We start to have a hard time thinking, a hard time remembering, and we sometimes get a little scared, and we some of us maybe even stay stuck and don't want to go out there and do the work that's necessary to be an activist. Now, what we're experiencing are normal body reactions to stress. However, it could be that we are also not experiencing real trauma. What we are experiencing and what is getting in our way of being effective workers in advocacy is that we are listening and saying we are listening to perceived threats. Well, he's saying that, therefore we're in trouble. Well, the government's in trouble, so why are arguing? Nothing's going to happen. People are just arguing in the Senate and nothing's going to get done. So why do I want to get anything done? Just because you feel the environment and government is stressful, it doesn't mean that it is a dangerous place. We can actually work when we're feeling stress and realize that, oh, that people are just screaming around us. It has nothing to do with the work we can do as a nation. We really can forge ahead. There's a lot of noise out there that's getting in the way of our thinking. Are y'all following me?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's making a lot of sense.
Yes.
All right, great. And I've experienced this, I've been to the Capitol in Austin over here, and I've seen these people, and I got to tell you, just because we perceive these people to be, when we perceive threats, it causes stress, and so just want to put that out. Now, here's a thought. I'm gonna go. We are way ahead of this. All right. So, when you see this picture, what are do you see any threats here?
Well, just because that man has that sign doesn't mean he's actually going to do anything.
Right. That's it. Right on. Because somebody may say, well, he's going to jump out, or his buddies are going to come out and drown us out. The question we may want to ask ourselves is, Gilbert isn't talking about, could this be dangerous? That wasn't the question. I asked, is this dangerous? Okay. It's a guy holding a sign. Right.
And he says he's reloading, but he doesn't have a gun or a rifle on him that we can see.
Yeah. And if we see it, well, then that's another situation. But I'm just saying, right? I'm putting it out there.
I think I think a lot of that sign has to do with everything we have experienced before we saw that sign.
That's it.
And it has to do with how much news do we intake about people who boast of those kind of things. You know, we're not retreating, we're reloading, and we internalize that. To what
Yes.
avail, though? Has anyone actually, have we actually seen that? And so it's almost like when we see signs like that, we are anticipating something to happen that could possibly happen, but could possibly not happen. So it's
Exactly.
our worldview really kind of shades how we think and frames how we think, and it's not always accurate. Because
That's
we remember we've seen all this news every hour is breaking news, but it's the same news, and we internalize that breaking same news, and then we see this sign and say, "Oh my gosh, it must be going to happen right now," and that's a perception.
This is what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Perceptions are not dangerous. And the folks that we lead and the folks that we have lots of leaders on Move On, and we're going to be leading folks who have perceptions that are not accurate. Perceptions are not dangerous, but boy, have some of us lived a life in which we need to be cautious. And so sometimes we as workers, as activist workers, we may want to give the folks we work with and help each other get grounded. And this is what the next part of our work is here. You know, it is possible to hack our nervous system, to unplug that little brain piece from perceived threat. Perceived threat can make the actual judging of what's dangerous or not dangerous, it can cloud it.
Yeah, because I would want to know, well, how do you get people grounded?
Okay, lovely. Right on. Okay, well, here's the next thing. Now we move on to 30-second, 5-second grounding exercises. And I got to tell you guys, I think this is the new wave for psychology. I think this is how we're going to start finding healing in a big, big way. This has changed my perception of how I work with helping people deal with trauma, because it's much easier than I ever thought it could be. And the feedback I'm getting from folks is pretty good. So how do we get grounded? All right, that's beautiful. And I have just some simple exercises that perhaps we can practice to give you a flavor of how it feels to use our ability to perceive our environment. I'm gonna take us through some exercises which will help us focus more on what our body is actually feeling, so that when we're able to do that, we're able to be more stress-free. What I tell people who are saying to me, you know, Gil, I don't know if I want to, I'm kind of afraid of what's going over there. There are people that are yelling and I'm afraid it's dangerous. Well, I'm not going to ask them to get rid of their stress. I'm not going to say, blank it out and don't feel stress. No, what I'm going to say is, okay, well, can you do this for me? Well, you know, you're telling me what you're feeling, but look at me. How I want you to notice to do this for me. As you're standing there, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the wet noodle, relax your muscle exercise. And I could be doing it with an activist right in front of me. And I'm saying, and I can take him or her or they over to a bench somewhere, right? And I can say, okay, just as you sit there or as you stand there, just notice your body. You can relax your shoulders. And the way I want you to do that is inhale and then Exhale, and as you slowly exhale, just allow your shoulders to relax all the muscles in your shoulders, and you can follow along. Then the next thing I'd like for you to do, inhale and relax your chest as you exhale. Just let go of the muscles in your chest. Great. Now, if you would, inhale, and as you slowly exhale, relax the muscles in your pelvis, that part of you that's sitting down. Just relax. Was anyone here doing that, going along? What was the sensation that you felt? What was the body sensation?
I relaxed.
And
now,
mine was peaceful.
yes. Then I would say, and that's what I would say. So what did you feel? And then I would say, well, notice that and go with it for 5 seconds. Notice that peaceful, relaxed sensation. You ready? Notice it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's an intent. That is how we hack the body. That's how we hack the nervous system in order for the body to regulate our ability to de-stress. That's just a simple exercise we can use with somebody maybe who we're going door to door with. It's called a wet noodle. And I want to recommend to activists who are feeling stress to practice the wet noodle 10 to 20 times a day. That's only 5 seconds. So that total 20 seconds. And they can pick the shoulders only. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How do your shoulders feel as they relax? Is that great? Okay. Yeah, we'll notice that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to recommend that leaders and activists can encourage the folks that we work with, each other, to do a wet noodle, maybe 4 to 5 times a day, just to get into the rhythm that we can deactivate stress. Another exercise is what I call the one. I call it the 1 sense protocol. There are 5 senses, but we can pick 1 sense to focus on. And let's just say somebody is saying, I don't know if I really want to make these phone calls. I'm just feeling kind of nervous. That's okay. You can feel nervous. All right. See, we're not saying not. It's okay. You want to do something with me so that maybe we can both relax? All right. Notice your finger. Pick something in front of you and touch it. And you can even start doing this if you pick something in front of you and then just touch it. Run your finger over it and notice what it feels like. You may notice the color, you may notice the smoothness of it, but just notice it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How are you feeling now? Are you less or more stressed? It'll be less. Yeah.
Yes.
Really? Oh, it's less? Then
Less.
notice how it's less. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the thing is that we're teaching each other. We can, as a team, as an organization, help each other de-stress by doing simple 5-second exercises, and these could be really powerful. And again, I'm going to suggest that I personally, when I first started practicing them, it was 100, 200 times a day. But practice them 5 times a day, just to get into the rhythm that you can indeed hack your system. So anyway.
You know what I noticed, Gil, was that I have this little red thing in front of me, so it has ridges on it. It's a piece of fabric.
Yeah.
And that was all that my mind was focusing on. Everything else was gone.
And I then would say to you, Evelyn, notice that that's all that your mind was focusing on, and everything else is gone.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. Yeah. That's how we hack a saturated brain. And give it the ability just to relax and focus on what you were saying, Evelyn, which is, let's look at solutions, shall we?
Yeah.
And I think that as activists, we've gone through a lot. Some of us, a lot of us started when Trump got elected. And we've been working. And I think we forgot to take care of ourselves because it was such a pressing, immediate life and death thing. We had to get to work. But I think that in the process, we didn't take care of ourselves and now we're paying for it, Does that make sense?
I thought I was going to die, but I thought, I'm just going to say it's a good day to die.
Well, now that is part of the presentation, and there are lots of little tools that I would like to put down on paper and then shoot over to you guys, Evelyn, so that you can disseminate them. But that is what I just want to introduce to us, that though we're feeling stress, there are ways that we can hack the system so that we really can become Zen masters in a way.
Yeah.
Woo. Yay. Thank you, Gil.
I hope this was helpful to y'all.
Yes.
This
Yes,
was amazing.
very much so.
And I think what I really appreciate is your tone of presentation, because your tone from me brings a sense of peace and quiet and possibilities. So I appreciate that.
Very gentle.
Thank you. Well, yay.